Hello, everyone. Welcome to the current humanitarian relief aid projects panel we are having today. I want kindly to remind you that you have headsets in case you need a translation, and please take your places and enjoy the conversation. We're going to have a short presentation of the speakers, and after that, we're going to follow up with the open discussion. In the end, we're going to have a time for questions from the audience. So thank you so much. Let's start. We're going to start with our speaker number one, and it's Ms. Anna Radecka. Would you please present yourself?
Okay. So my name is Anna Radecka. I'm coordinating humanitarian programs of Polish Center of International Aid in Ukraine. Also, I'm in good touch with the other kind of program coordinators from our organization, and maybe that's it.
Thank you so much. Ms. Olga Sulkowska from Caritas.
Hello, good morning. My name is Olga Sulkowska. I'm representing Caritas Poland. I'm the project coordinator responsible for the whole Eastern Europe region in Caritas. Right now, of course, mostly involved in the Ukrainian projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Michael Capponi from Global Empowerment Mission. Sorry.
Yeah, my name is Michael Capponi. I'm the president of Global Empowerment Mission. We have a very simple motto, and that's how to get the most amount of aid to the most amount of people for the least amount of money in the shortest amount of time. That's basically what we do, and that's what we'll discuss today.
Thank you so much. Mr. Phil Oldham. We don't have enough microphones. Can I ask the team to correct it? Thank you. Sorry for that.
Hi, I'm Phil Oldham. I'm the Deputy Country Director for International Medical Corps. I'm based in Kiev, and we have programs all over Ukraine in about 7 or 8 offices right now. I'll tell you more about it in a minute.
Thank you so much. So, the last but not least, Mr. Grzegorz Gruca, representing PACH.
Representing Polish Humanitarian Action, competing 30 years this year, as the organization active in Ukraine from 2014, with offices in various places, and also assisting refugees in Poland that arrived after the full-scale war.
Thank you so much. We tried to make a basic introduction as short as possible and come back to the discussion and enter the discussion as fast as possible. So my first question to all of you would be, can you please tell, in this 9 months, what was the biggest challenge dealing with Ukraine or within Ukraine, and what would you say was the outcome or the learning out of this challenge? Anyone? Phil? Grzegorz?
Okay, I'll start. As being in Ukraine, we had to deal also with the war situation of our staff and our projects. As we were running projects in the Donbas and Luhansk region along the contact line, also our people were affected. And we have a philosophy of working with the local community. So we are always working with social workers from the area, with the people that are affected by the situation, that are in the local context. So some of them had to flee. But it was amazing that we were able to keep up the psychosocial assistance for the whole period from the beginning of the war. And that proves that if you are really based in the local contact and you are working with the local society, the society understands the needs of local people. And I think this was one of the biggest learnings for us, that we are just there for a certain period, but the local community has to learn, has to be with us, and then it has to take the challenge on its own.
Thank you so much. Phil?
The needs were so big at the beginning, and we had to start, we had an office in Mariupol, and a small staff of 15 people. So we've grown to 300 people now, and it has been a challenge to find staff and to train them, because the talent pool is so deep. Closer? Okay. There's so much talent, but just not a lot of familiarity with the work of NGOs and the government regulations that come with it, and how to manage all of the processes that are involved in working. So there wasn't that experience working for NGOs, even though the talent was definitely there. But 9 months later, we have, as I say, an incredible staff of 300 Ukrainians working for us.
So from 15 to 300, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge growth. Thank you. Anna, Olga?
Yeah, I think that we have a similar experience, like to coordinate people who are on the ground and to coordinate the massive number of also donations we receive, because there are two sides. So how to spend this money wisely and how to provide this assistance to those most needed. And I think that we did a huge step forward, because I think all of our organizations had this kind of problem or a challenge with massive influx of funds, and on the other side, the massive number of those who are in need. And I think that this is the lesson learned we already have.
And in terms of Caritas, I would like to ask you a question. I know that many corporate organizations, they have like a list of trusted funds, and Caritas is one of them. And unfortunately, Red Cross came up into a kind of number of conflicts, and there was different decisions from all over. I'm sorry for asking bold questions, but that's what I'm really interested in. So Pach had the trust, can I say Pach, right? Pach had a well-built trust for a long time in Poland, but Caritas was very well trusted by international corporations. So having these donations, how did you deal with the challenge of having so much inflow of everything you had to coordinate? What was the way to, to solve it? How did you do it?
Well, actually, maybe it's worth to mention how the basically Caritas network functions. So actually, the Caritas is based in actually each country in the world. So we had a huge support from the whole Caritas network, especially from US CRS, from Switzerland, from Germany, who give us a huge technical advisory in this area. Because we also faced this problem that we didn't have enough staff to proceed with the funds, with in-kind donations quickly and wisely. On the other hand, there are also Caritas SPES and Caritas Ukraine, two national Caritases in the Ukraine. So we also closely cooperate with them to list the needs, to address them correctly. And of course, I think like in each organization, there was a huge chaos at the beginning. That's obvious. And it's like we all just had phone call after phone call with offers of help. And then you have to somehow realize what are you going to focus on and get some, to proceed it. We decided to focus on cash because it turned out to be the most needed. And of course the in-kind donations, especially at the beginning. The markets in the Ukraine were had problems with there were a lack of items in the warehouses, in shops. So therefore, these in-kind donations were very highly needed, and they are still needed right now, especially in the east and in the south when we still provide this assistance.
Thank you so much.
I think
I would like Anna to add, but please do.
One of the other problems that we encountered, both in Poland and in Ukraine, is that there's such a desire to help people. And so what do? We send things, and we send clothes, and we send food, but we don't need clothes and food because there's still clothes. I mean, I can go into the Nike store and buy a new pair of Nikes in Kiev. I can go into the grocery store and I can buy an orange from Morocco. I can buy an avocado from Mexico. So we need to give people cash so that they can buy what they most need, whether it's food, medicine, or clothing. But those items are still all working there in 90% of Ukraine. So in some of the frontline areas that have recently been liberated, there is a need to give people things because the markets aren't working, but they bounce back in a month or two. And in a couple of months later, now in Kharkiv and in Donetsk, those things are back in circulation now. So cash is really important in this context.
Thank you. We'll come back to the cash question for sure. Anna?
Yes, I will also say a few words about these challenges for organization that we faced at the beginning, because our organization was before working mainly in abroad, so in Middle East, in Africa, and also in the Eastern Partnership countries. But what happens at the beginning was really like disaster. So the first process, which was really visible to us, that actually you had big funds incoming, and you needed just like this to implement the huge amount of money. So all our experienced coordinators came from abroad. So all the head of missions from Lebanon, from Palestine, from other countries just had to come quickly to Poland, and to be able, with their experience, to take these funds and to manage these funds properly, and to hire new persons, make recruitments. And as we all know, there was a challenge in the labor market because there were no experienced people with implementing development or humanitarian aid projects. So that was a big challenge. Another big challenge were so our organization, as you asked, you asked Grzegorz, or Olga, what we were doing. So this is exactly many individual people or donor were giving us money. So at the beginning also you need to get out of this, let's say, chaos to organize it in programs. But also our organization just transferred the good practices that we had from abroad. Like we also started implementing cash assistance programs in a huge scale in Poland and also in Ukraine that I was responsible for. Just because it was too little time to develop new methodology and whatever. And also to find people who, for example, can come to Ukraine and speak Russian. For example, Ukrainian maybe, yes, but we had no Ukrainians here who were so experienced with the project, so you could find local stuff. So these were challenges that I think that organizations had to cope first. And then we could switch to the really thinking about the programs being implemented, yeah? Just to provide the good quality of what we are doing. And these processes, heads of missions came to Poland and the local staff became heads of missions. So this is also a very interesting process.
Thank you so much. Michael, I would ask you to answer the same question. You are represented in 46 countries and you've been dealing with a lot of disasters. Was the experience with Ukraine the same, or the challenges were new and different?
So every disaster is completely different, right? You have to come in like a general and you have to have a new master plan. In the very beginning, we were at the border in Radecka, for example, on the 25th of February, and we were speaking directly to the people. That's how we were getting the intel. And what they were saying is, we have family or relatives in Spain. Can you buy us a plane ticket to go there? So we immediately established a relocation program. That relocation program was in partnership with Jolanta Kwasieneska. We ended up relocating about 40,000 people. Simultaneously, we set up a warehouse immediately in Jeshu. This is where it all started. So by March 1st, we already had a warehouse established here. It was very dangerous to bring aid in at the time. So we had to work with our first partners, which were basically military experts that were retired, like Aerial Recovery Group, that would go in and bring aid all the way to Mariupol in that time, right? You also couldn't have a lot of aid coming in from the United States in early March because it takes 2 months to bring a container in. So we had to amass aid from Spain, from England. England alone, I think, sent us 78 trucks just to Jeshu, right? And that was going immediately in. And as we were bringing aid in, other people started coming and contacting us in Jeshu and saying, we're a church, we have a church partner here. Can we fill up our van or our truck with some aid and bring it to this? And they would lay out a plan, and then we would fill their vans. And today, that program, 9 months later, we established other headquarters in Lviv and then in Kyiv, now has 165 Ukrainian partners. So I can attest that, the true work that I see on the ground there, that our team, Andre, sees on the ground in every single location, is really the Ukrainian orgs, some European orgs, some great Polish orgs, a handful of American orgs, but they're the ones that really know their areas, right? And there's an expert in Chernihiv, and there's an expert in Vinnytsia, and there's an expert in Kharkiv, and there's someone who knows Izium, right? And you have to work with different groups that know the areas and know the needs and know where an elderly family lives inside an apartment building and what their needs are. You can't always bring cash cards. All the abandoned apartment buildings all throughout the East that are completely bombed, right? Where are they gonna go get groceries, for example, with a cash card? So that wouldn't work. So we created a box called a family necessities kit. That box has a week of supplies of food, it has hygiene, it has blankets, it has things like that. And those are delivered individually all throughout the country.
You shared with me that you created a list of this 165 partners who you trust from region to region. What was the criteria of picking them? How were you doing it? Because as I assume, partnering and building trust with Ukrainian side have been a challenge for a lot of organizations. So I would ask you to answer to that and share all the other panelists their experience. How was, partnering with Ukrainian side on your side? So please, what was the criteria for the file, for the trust building?
So years ago, before we were able to have official partnerships with Amazon and Walmart and companies like that, in the beginning, they would give us 2 pallets of aid and say, go out and distribute it, get us some pictures, let's see how you do, and we'll give you more. Today, those corporations give us $10, $15 million worth of product each per year, but we had to earn their trust. So too, that's what we did with Ukrainian partners. In the beginning, it was take 2 pallets, drive them out to Kharkiv, post it on your Facebook, show us a report, and then we'll see how you do. And that's how we started evaluating people, right? And we started looking at every time somebody would request aid from us, we would actually look at all their Facebook pages and we would see what kind of groups they were and what they were doing, right? Because you can't look at that in a rating. It doesn't matter what their rating is or any of that. What matters is what they're actually doing yesterday and the week before. And once we started figuring out who was doing what and who was good where, that's when we would build more trust.
Thank you. Please add on how was your partnerships within Ukraine? How did you select those who you were working with?
Well, we were lucky enough that we had the partners already in place, but of course the scale rised, so we needed to look for new ones. But we are quite, I would say, doing it the usual way. So we do due diligence, we see how the structure of the organization is fit. We understand that practically all non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations in Ukraine became humanitarian actors. So now everyone is doing this. But it's very important to keep the same standards. It's very important to share our experience and build the experience of the Ukrainian partner, because only that way we are able to do it, especially that a part of everything that was said here that we are doing, so sending food kits, sending hygiene kits to all the regions. We are also involved in very delicate issue, which is psychosocial assistance. And we've been doing it in Donetsk, we've been doing it in Luhansk, and now we are also doing it, for example, in Poland. So you need not a trustful organization, but also the quality of social assistance of psychologists. And, well, luckily enough, We are delivering social, psychological assistance to children under the Wooden Puppet Pajacyk campaign in Poland that was established by PAH many years ago. So we have, for example, Ukrainian psychologists that deal with children with trauma that are coming in. And I think this is also one of the greatest challenges that we'll meet along as the war will be ending, that we not only need to deliver goods and assistance, but we need to deliver assistance in terms of psychosocial on a massive scale. People will be very traumatized after the war, and along the humanitarian assistance, this is something that needs to be delivered.
Thank you. Phil?
Since we've been operating in Ukraine since the war, shortly after the war started in 2014, we already had some local partners, both in Mariupol that have left Mariupol as we did, and in other parts of the country. But we've also found a great range of other partners. A lot of them delivering psychosocial services. I won't speak about that today because my colleague Blondine, who directs our psychosocial services, will be speaking on a different panel tomorrow. But it's something that's very needed, and we're involved in it as well.
But the selection process,
yeah,
what was the selection process?
The selection process was largely looking at what programmatic things they were delivering, but we then had to do a lot of capacity building around the management and the reporting and the procurement guidelines that we need to follow with because of our donors' restrictions on how we spend the money. So they're doing great work out in the field, and that was the main criteria. What are you delivering? What are you doing? And then we'll help with all the reporting and regulations and building your capacity to learn about those things.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yes, maybe I can say a few words, similar to Grzegorz words. We had already the partners from our activities that were led in 2014 and 15. And the partners were based in Kharkiv, and we were that time serving assistance and aid near the front line near Lugansk. And actually, so what we had, also we did serve cash assistance. So now the obvious thing when you have no time is to get back to the former partners. But the very interesting challenges, for example, they started working with us, with cash assistance, but it appeared that sometimes you get these partners really shocked with how the methods, for example, IT tools for the cash assistant changed. So we had actually to do huge work with them because they were not very easy to adapt to the new technologies after so many years. Somehow we did, and we did it successfully, but that's true that then you start the process of looking for new partners. And actually, maybe for the new topics, now we'll be also looking for the new partners in Ukraine for maybe reconstruction subjects for different one, maybe in different regions. But the best method that we faced is always to do something small with per partner and see how it works. And especially sometimes there is a big gap between how do you work and sometimes how can you do administrative reporting, which may lead you to fail. You can do very good work, but you can be so tired and washed out because you cannot meet the requirements of you as a donor and the donor of us. So these are the things that always is a process.
Thank you so much. Anna?
Yeah, and Olga. Right,
Sorry.
so no problem. The perspective of Caritas is a bit different. Like, we also had a very traditional partners, but from the Caritas network. Which was great because these partners are checked, they are in the network where we have some common management standards. The headquarters had their own local networks, so actually they cooperate with over 60 local partners. Of course, it doesn't mean that everybody were on the same position, and that's obvious, that's what Anya mentioned. Like, everybody were in the process of learning, and we are still in this process. And but it was very good, and what is also the advantage, let's say, of this network is what Michael mentioned, that actually when you are on the local level, when you've got your huge social trust, our local partners, Caritas, had a huge knowledge of the local societies, communities, and therefore, for example, although we do the cash assistance project, we are able to provide this assistance to people who are actually not in the loop of applying for this money. Because it turned out that there's a lot of people, we do right now the project Family to Family in the Kiev region. And it turned out that through the parishes and through the local communities, we are able to target people who never applied for this money because they didn't have the IT skills, they don't have the knowledge, they are out of the loop. So we can provide this to this most needed and forget it in some way. People, so elderly people, for those people with disabilities. And sometimes there even is a story that our social partners came to the family and the family said, we are in bad conditions, but maybe there is somebody more needed who needs this money more. And the people are sometimes too humble to apply for money. And that's great because as a local person that this family really needs assistance and we really support them in applying for this. This is exactly what Michael said, that which floor, which family should receive the funds.
Thank you so much, Olga. The next question, we touched this subject a bit, and it's also a bit provocative, but are you pro-cash or against cash? Do you believe in a systematic help and building the social structures or systematic help structures, or you believe in cash assistance? And if you believe in cash assistance, how would you identify that it's efficient and it really helps somebody? Please do, Mike.
So with our partnership with Bethany Frankel's Be Strong, we have a cash program, Be Strong Cash Card, that's from GEM, and we distribute millions per year in disasters all throughout America. So it's actually a very important program that we also have. In the Ukraine case, we used it in the Kremenchuk mall bombing. The people that were injured, we identified them through the Poltava government, and then they gathered them for us, and then we each gave them money so that it could cover some of their misfortunes. In the Kyiv bombings that happened in June, we worked with the Kyiv government, and we gave cash cards, for example, so people can rent another home since their building was bombed, right? And that was vetted by the local authorities. So I do personally think that they're very useful and great. So in no way I was saying that they're not. My argument was that in Donetsk, there's nobody that could go shopping anywhere in the regions and all those small towns. And so you have to do a combination of things in a hybrid. And that's why we're a unified group here. And that's why everyone plays their part. I always say everybody's good at something and not everybody's good at everything. And that's why it's incredible that we're all here together with all the different organizations and all their different ideas and concepts, so everybody does something. And together we're better.
Thank you. Please.
All right. So yeah, I do agree, absolutely. What I think is important is rather the duration of this support. Because I think that we all agree that if you get the money, it gives you a dignity. So you can decide what are you going to spend this money on. And from from Caritas knowledge and experience, these are the testimonies of people who said that one of them spent this money on food. The second to do the new windows because the previous were broken. Part of them even spent this money to buy or to pay rations to get the money, the body of the dead soldier back. So there are traumatic and dramatic stories behind this, and I don't even dare to check what the people spend this money on. There are also very simple stories, like for example, mother is able to pay for internet, Wi-Fi, so their kids can attend the e-learning. So it's it's a daily life. The people try to keep the normal life as far as possible. And that's great because it gives you a dignity, a possibility to decide what you want to spend your money on. However, for example, in Kharkiv, we also distribute in-kind donation packages. And once there was a story that the women went out from the shelter and she said, that's great you are here, that you give us packages, because it's the only reason one time in a week I do a makeup and I go out and I feel like for a couple of minutes like I have a normal life. And that's why this composition is very important.
Thank you so much. That's a beautiful story.
That's what I want to say. There are good things and bad things about cash assistance, right? So the good things are for sure that we are supporting local market, that we are giving to people this dignity to choose and select themselves what they need for their life, so they are not like passive recipients of something that somebody granted, yeah, like jacket, for example, yeah, that maybe they like or not like, but they have it. So there are also minuses. The minus, of course, is the risk of being, being dependent, becoming dependent and just waiting for new assistance, for new money. We had this problem. We distributed cash to 6,500 persons. The program is actually running.
In Ukraine, right? In Ukraine.
In Ukraine, yes. In Poltava, Kharkiv, and Kirovogradskaya Oblast region. And actually, so this is when we did the evaluation, so the monitoring, post-distribution monitoring, okay, most of people are really dependent. So actually, our organization, somehow a conclusion from this is that for sure, now we try to give assistance to the very specifically selected persons. So when you know that somebody really can afford to work, like a disabled person or elderly person, or there is a woman with 4 children, so it's impossible for her to look for. So to have some kind of programs that are conditional, that are still motivating people to work. And this is also what we did in Kyiv, where you somehow it's easier to find a job that then we decreased the cash amount that people were receiving. And also, I'm a big fan of cash for work programs, where people receive money for the job that they have, for the work that they have done, and for the work that they have done for the benefit of their municipalities. Actually, these are programs where which we successfully implement both in Poland. We are financing teachers, Ukrainian teacher who assists Polish teachers at school. So they are not learning to be passive and waiting. Okay, we get money, and later we are not able to be active because we forgot how to do it, yeah? So in Ukraine, we are signing also memorandums with Hromadas in Dnipro, Kharkiv, and Poltava regions, that people are just somehow, they agreeing with municipality what works they are doing, even if it's cleaning or taking care of patients in the hospital. So I think this is our lessons learned from that programs for the future.
Thank you so much. Grzegorz?
Well, I think the answer is quite simple. We need to do both, and we need to know where to do which modality, use which modality. It's obvious that we do cash wherever there is a market, wherever there is a structure that can absorb the money and can also vitalize the local market. And then when it's not possible, we use the, let's say, cash for work or other modalities that are possible. But we send, of course, goods where the market is not existing. The good news is that we've made some analysis, and at least in the part of Polish society and the Ukrainians that are in Poland that are receiving, and we have distributed over 27,000 cash cards to people. They are using it mainly for the basic needs that they need to acquire. So we see from the outcomes for the cards that people are not misusing the cash, as our friend Barry mentioned yesterday. cash assistance should be always remembered that this humanitarian assistance. This is just the same, that's just a different modality. So I think it's quite clear that, and that both should be used.
Thank you so much. Phil?
Yeah, I agree with everything. We've done 19,000 cash transfers, but we've also distributed tons of food, water, and hygiene kits, depending upon whether the market's present or not. So, but IMC has not done that in a lot of places, so we're actually new to cash, mostly because we focus on primary health. So this is actually one of the largest programs in terms of cash distributions for IMC around the world.
Thank you. Have you seen enough collaboration and preparation to get involved, help out from Ukrainian government side? And do you need it as having different experience in different regions? And if not, what are you missing? If yes, please make an example and tell the story. Thank you.
So our model has been very direct. The first thing we do when we get into a community is meet with the local authorities, right? So we get into Chernihiv, we meet with the Chernihiv governor, we meet with his deputies, we meet with his aide deputies. They bring us to their warehouses, what they have, and they explain the goods. Then they give us a tour. And then we sign an MOU, which we have with probably half of the oblasts that are key right now. And we make a commitment. Most of the MOUs we have are something like one 18-wheeler per oblast per week that we send of supplies to those government houses, right? And they are key because the information changes, right, continually. Like right now, the most important thing is generators, blankets, windows, things of that nature, right? In the summertime, it was completely different. So that's where we get our, real-time information, and I think it's critical to have partners with government in a private public partnership.
But is it enough? Is this information enough? Is it coming?
No.
Okay.
We gather information from the government side. We go and to the actual villages and speak to the people directly and hear their stories. Doesn't always correlate, right? And then we speak to the local organizations that we're partners with, and we have their versions of the story, and then we have to basically have a summary of that, and that's how we come up with our data.
So please add, if everybody is doing the same, or you have different approaches to collecting data and also building a partnership with the government or governmental structures?
Well, for starters, as an American organization, we're a guest of the Ukrainian government in Ukraine. So we don't want to be there if we're not doing what they want us to do. So we have MOUs also with the Ministry of Health, mostly for our work in each of the areas where we are. We also are getting, for our cash programs, the list of beneficiaries from the Ministry of Social Protection at the local level. So if we want to distribute to the elderly, single-headed households, or the disabled, we can get those lists and do the cash transfer directly to those categories of people that are our targets. We also have found that just about in every village, there's a self-organized distribution point for humanitarian aid, and we'll go into a village and talk to the mayor and say, okay, how many people? And they'll, 700 people. Okay, we'll come back tomorrow with 700 food kits. Have everybody come to the school at 11 o'clock and we'll distribute it. Everybody comes to the school at 11 o'clock, we distribute 700 food kits, and we go and we come back later and do it again or bring other things that are needed. So we're getting very good. It is enough. For what we're doing, we found great cooperation with the government, both formally and informally, both in terms of cooperation, access, obviously into some of these newly liberated areas, we are getting special permission from the military to go in, and sometimes there are places where we still can't go because the military is looking at demining and security and access, and as soon as we can go in, we do, but we have to get the permission of the military. So we're also getting in collaboration, for information sharing and access issues with the military. So we've got great cooperation from the government.
Thank you. Olga?
Well, we are about to start actually the cooperation with municipalities because, especially with Kiev. Actually, months ago we started to think about set up a warm hot points in terms of the winter, and actually the Caritas Spes received the official invitation from the Kiev authorities to launch this kind of points in Kiev. However, we will also try to set them up in other bigger cities, because as we all know, the most prone to the lack of energy are those those in the cities. So we'll use our infrastructure and provide all this necessary equipment, like the generators, of course, the I don't know, the power banks, heating, and so on. It also turned out that, for example, in a couple of places, the internet connection is also the problem. So for sure, we will also be involved in this kind of activities, like to provide this Starlink's connection to these points that are losing their connection, because it's also turned out to be the problem, starting to be the problem in some parts of the Ukraine.
But are you gathering this information from municipalities?
Yes.
Okay.
You're right.
Do you work or collaborate with ministries?
No, not directly, not Caritas Poland, Caritas Spes in Ukraine, yes, they do.
Thank you. Grzegorz?
Well, we also strongly collaborate with the local governments, up to the point that we were also training social workers in the areas where we were present. So we are also sharing this, our knowledge in terms of how to deal with certain cases. But of course, we rely very much on the local partners, and they are the ones that are working directly with the local community, local government. I think that one of the greatest things that happened was that Ukraine was able to respond to the war and the humanitarian crisis on the local government level. This level was the key to the success and to the fact that we were able also to deliver, distribute all the goods that were coming into Ukraine. And I think this is something we would, of course, we are registered with the Ukrainian government, and we are operating on legal basis of Ukraine. But the local governments to us and local partners are the key.
So municipalities, mayors of the cities became the key to
us,
being
yes.
effective. Okay.
Yes.
Anna?
I will just shortly, I will start from conclusion that when you distribute humanitarian aid, then the cooperation with the local government is crucial. So for example, PCPM, we are not cooperating with ministries, because I think that to cooperate with ministries, or you need to have huge money, and we are not that scale, or you need to implement some development activities, so to develop some sector. But this is not the situation that we have now in Ukraine regarding humanitarian aid. And I would say that whatever, we have distributed a lot of food and non-food packages, both for IDPs and also local inhabitants not relocated. And actually, my feelings are very, very good. So everywhere we were, that was crucial that there were services that they know exactly who received what. And this is that there is some justice, some equal distribution. If there is not, there is already in small communities is always like a scandalic issues or whatever. And I had very, very good cooperation, for example, with Truskawiec City Council, that the lady who was working, she exactly knew, they had QR codes that could show who has received what. And we never faced problems with not funding. Always they had volunteers, people who worked with huge packs and heavy. And I wanted only to share my appreciation to them.
Thank you so much.
I think one of the other conversations that we're just starting to have with the government, the Ministry of Health, is how to build back better, because one of communism's ways of showing success was that there was a doctor in every village. And now a lot of those health points have been damaged. But do we need a doctor in every village now? And do we want to rebuild every one of them? And there are hospitals in Kiev that are underutilized because there aren't enough doctors and there aren't enough equipment. and there aren't enough patients. They were just built too large for the number of people that live in a given city. So do we want to rebuild that? And then if we do, you know, is it damaged so much that we should just forget about it and start over, or should we repair it? And you know, because a lot of them are still from the Soviet era, so they weren't great buildings to begin with. So where do we decide to rebuild versus start over? And again, what level of service is available at the village level, at a regional center, at the rayon level where there's a town of 10,000, at maybe another major city of 100,000, and at the oblast center? And you know, what kind of surgery or outpatient treatment is available at each level, and how do we kind of use this opportunity to modernize the health infrastructure of Ukraine after the war?
Do you think there would be enough to modernize, or we do have to rebuild it?
Well, a lot of it will have to be rebuilt because of the level of damage. But again, not everything needs to be rebuilt because some of it wasn't being utilized in the first place. So that's, we have to have that conversation with the ministry. And so in the short term, we're trying to kind of do moderate repairs that will allow a building to be put back into use. And then in the long term, we have to decide, okay, are we really going to fix this permanently and restock it, or is this something that we don't need to do? Because if you have 5 villages and they're all 5 kilometers apart, do you need 5 doctors, a doctor in each one of them? Or can you have one doctor or you know, one of the villages has a health point, but the others don't? And so, you know, that's not something I'm an expert at, but IMC has done a lot of that work, and we're going to start to have that conversation with the ministry.
I hope that it's going to be all as a part of our medical reform was coming through. So it's going to be a good effort put into this to restore it and to make it efficient, because there was a medical reform coming in before the war. My next question would be the following. Do you feel that projects that were done before, like everything that was done since the beginning of war, and new risks coming in, the risk of blackout, when basically we are facing the reality where millions of people can freeze, having no water, no energy supply. Do you feel and do you think we have enough instruments to react? Are we good with planning? Are you feel that you are good enough with planning? Or is there a territory where we need more collaboration, more open discussions, more planning, more think tanks, just to have this, you know, risk hedging in a way?
Well, the mayor of Kiev has already said that there needs to be an evacuation plan for 3 million people to leave the city if the infrastructure is damaged to the point where it cannot be repaired in a matter of days like it has been so far. So there's a real possibility that the 200 staff of IMC, the 3 million residents of Kiev, will all of a sudden have to go.
Sure. At this point, do you think that European Union, international organizations, all the partners of systematic partners of Ukraine, do you think we are ready for that? Because we all know this risk. Pretty much, if you have 5 million city evacuated, it's a disaster. It's a pure humanitarian crisis in the middle of another crisis. Are we doing enough to prognose, to build a plan, not to react de facto as we did since the war started, but to have a different approach to that? Do you think we are doing enough, or there's something else needed?
Well, like a lot of organizations, we're buying a tremendous number of generators, some as large as 300 kVs that can power an entire hospital, so that at least those critical infrastructure points can maintain services if the electricity grid is knocked out. But you know, I don't think there's a way to prepare for the evacuation of a city of 3 million. I mean, it is going to be a disaster if it becomes necessary. You know, the roads will be blocked. There'll be traffic. I mean, it'll be awful, and I'm not sure how you can prepare for that.
Hopefully, this never happens. Let's
We
hope
do
for
hope.
this.
But the city's establishing warming places with generator power, so people can come in and get warm and charge their devices and get some food.
Yeah,
and
but do you know, like, I will I'm sorry, I'll let everyone else speak, but I just need to make this point. Do you know that for Kyiv, the need is 2,500, it's called resilience points, or punkty niezłamności, and there is only 500 now.
No.
And my granny is still, my two grannies are still in Kyiv. And I could not imagine how I can explain to them if they're in a blackout and I cannot move because the border might be blocked or anything. And it takes me like 3 days to come and join them and they're freezing. How can I explain why it was not enough? Did I do enough? That's my own question. So even in this point, when Kyiv is not providing enough, having the risk of a blackout, and we know it's 5 times not enough, it's not 30% not enough. It's 30% done. So,
but every day there's more. Every day we're doing more, and the longer we delay that, the more ready we will be. So I think we're making progress. But
for sure, yeah. With this, I agree. Grzegorz, and then Michael.
Well, the simple answer is we are not. We are not prepared as a European Union. We are not prepared as the West should be. But on the other hand, all of our organizations, I believe, do as much as they can on the level that they can answer. And as we know, there are certain priorities. As you mentioned, elderly people, children should be taken care of. And we, as PAH, we are creating a center for IDPs where we provide generators and we provide clothing. So we need to take care of the most vulnerable at the beginning and then gradually deliver, try to make sure that the people don't need to flee, that they have a place where they can get safety, warm, as close to their living place. Because if we will really create this huge, massive influx of people at this time of the year, it will create a bigger disaster. So I think we need to tackle with the problems and on the level we are able to face them, and we try to do it.
Thank you. Michael?
I agree. You know, energy systems are multi-billion-dollar infrastructure things, and the private sector from a humanitarian can only do so much, right? I mean, we can't bring a single generator to every single household in all of Ukraine, and nobody can. So we just have to see what's been happening so far, right? And the odds have been great so far. I mean, if you look at this last big attack, for example, right, with 100 missiles and all of this, and they're going to wipe it all out.
May I just add, I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but I'm looking at that Patriot standing there in the airport, and I really wish Poland would give some of us to them, right? Because I feel really safe here.
And not much has changed, and our whole entire team is Ukrainian, right? So we don't have U.S. people other than me and Majel. And the Ukrainians that we speak to are really resilient. And, you know, many of them are like, we'll just be with a candle and we're not leaving. And we have from our GEM Europe team border stats from the Polish border control. And every single time there's these major drone attacks and infrastructure and everything, the first thing we do is meet with Border Patrol and get the stats. And the numbers are reversed. They are still reversed to this day. There is actually more Ukrainians leaving Poland and going to Ukraine than the other way around.
Why do you think it's happening like this?
Because first you have a president who has really given hope, and as him not leaving, it's showing something. Then you have, you know, as we know, there was 3.2 million people in Kyiv before, and then in March, there was a few 100,000, and everybody was here in Poland. So they already went through that rodeo, right? Sitting in a shelter, on a cot, on their back all day long, right? And then they came back home. And now they're, you know what, we'd rather be home. So I don't see a gigantic influx if all infrastructure goes out, but I do see a partial one.
Thank you.
I
Anna?
just think that Ukrainian people are stronger and stronger, and I really appreciate that they want to be there. But coming back to what you were saying about blackouts and all these challenges, okay, we can talk a lot about, okay, European Union is not ready. Somebody is not ready.
My question was, are we planning enough in advance? Are we hedging the risks enough? Can we do more on this? Maybe collaboration, partnerships, think tanks, open discussions is something that is needed. And if it is, who has to lead it? Who is the one to manage it? Is it European Union? Is it Ukrainian government? Who shall it be?
You know, this is the ideal situation, what you talk about, but nobody will deny that these few months, this is like the constant polygon. So you never know what happens. So like for us, for organizations, we are implementing some projects, then it happens. For example, we are implementing cash for work, but the blackout happens and all the municipalities do not work. So how to talk about signing agreements? Because you have to provide generators. So what I'm thinking from the very simple and not so high point of view, that everybody of us, every organization or the person like you, take care about your grandmother. Yes, I understand, in Kiev. Like everybody of us can do something. Some organization has capacity for buying 4 generators and bringing to some small city in Ukraine. Some organizations has plenty of thousands of dollars, and okay, this is maybe more efficient, but my feeling is that situation is changing, and we are just deciding like on a polygon. We have to be very flexible, and the questions that you are raising, that would be ideal to find some body who could predict and be responsible for that. But like the level of my organization, we are thinking about just small issues of humans.
Thank you. Olga?
Yeah, I can only agree that it's impossible to do enough in this concrete situation. And actually the only game changer, the real one, is the political will. As long as Russia will do this, there is no option. We can provide the energy, the quality, normal level of quality to the Ukrainian society. That's obvious. What we can do actually is to prepare for some level of refugees that will live probably cities in the winter, during the winter, because it's obvious also to ask yourself a question, how long can you stand in such conditions? And are everybody able to stand in these conditions? There are people who are brave, there are people who just sick and tired, and that's obvious because we are humans. What we can do actually is to do more advocacy on the European level, because there is still unprepared real relocation plan in terms of the bigger number of refugees. What we observe in Poland, I think, is also the fact that people, what we saw on the first time, that people share their home places, their flats, apartments. I'm not really sure if the number is going to be the same, if we will face the same scale of migration. Of course, we will not face the same scale. However, we should prepare the more strategic and structured program to provide at least shelters. We try to do it in Caritas to unite all the network, and we do have some shelters, but mostly they are already occupied by the refugees from the first wave, right? So it's not that easy to locate everybody in Poland, and that's also the challenge we will face.
Thank you. You wanted to add something?
No, I just wanted to add what you were saying, but I agree that coordination is crucial. So if you talk about missing 200 resilience points in Kiev, it would be good to know, some let's say, line for even financing, that there could be some institution just building other ones, and we know whom to address, for example, to transfer some funds for 1 or 2 or 3 or even 5 of resilience points. So that would be good to know who could coordinate it and to have information.
In terms of planning and acting, looking into the future, what are your plans? What are the plans of your organizations? How do you identify the most vulnerable? How do you prioritize the projects? And if you can compare something that was done and you're planning to be doing in the future, what is the main difference? What is the main crucial, dramatic learning that you've had?
Well, it's very hard to predict, and we have seen similar scenarios in many, many conflicts. But I think we have to manage to overcome the winter. And we are having projects like modular houses that we deliver, or at least one room in the building that is destroyed is prepared for one family. So as we were saying, it's limited, but it's really answering the needs and demand on the spot. And this is what we are going to do. And then in spring, we should be thinking, if things go better, on the linking rehabilitation and reconstruction, because this will enable people to go back and to start to think about their lives in Ukraine. But I agree that it's very difficult to predict how many people will come to Poland. Many people that have families in Poland already are coming for a short period to get some relief from the situation in Ukraine. And even though we see the influx being almost equal in coming and going out, this 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe the Christmas period will be something that we will see some people coming in, but probably already knowing where they go and where to whom to address their needs. So that's my prediction.
So just to finalize, your main focuses in the future would be modular houses and the space for people to live and restoration, right?
In a sense, yes, but we've learned that it's always based on assessment, because the situation is changing so rapidly that for different regions, different areas, there will be a different model to answer. But definitely, yes, people do want to go back, even in dire conditions. They do want to stay close to their homes, even to have one room. And I think this will be also the driving force for Ukraine to rebuild, that people will see the future.
May I also ask you about psychological and mental health issues, which your initiative is doing a lot, helping people in Ukraine and in Poland. Can you name it as a priority for the future, just to support families, women, children with mental health issues and mental health practices, and to get over the PTSD?
I think this is exactly the thing we have to be prepared to. Because once people, the different phases of reaction on stress, people sometimes when the stress is very high, they act very actively, they do things, they try to be motivated. Once they see the peak and once they see that the scale is so big, people will get really frustrated. And we have to be ready, we have to have the structure to give psychosocial support, to make sure that the children that are now in Poland, for example, studying, getting assistance from us, will be able to get the same quality assistance once they are back in Ukraine. Also, the victims of mines, the victims of blasts, they all need to have assistance. And I think this is one of the largest challenges that we will be facing, because buildings can be rebuilt, but the psychological part of the human being is something that is very difficult to deal with.
Thank you. Michael?
Okay, I will try to be short.
Please.
Because
you can be long.
I'm always
it's
inspired by my colleagues, so I would confirm that whatever we are doing, it's also fluctuating depending on situation. And exactly, we were doing, the example could be evacuation, that is related to Grzegorz said, that we were organizing continuously, week by week, evacuations from Kharkiv to Poland, starting from February until July. It was like 1,217 persons that we transferred, and we were using our transit center near the railway East Warszawa Wschodnia railway center that we had to close because there was no need. The influx, the number of people coming back and coming to Poland changed. Yeah, But you're asking what you're going to do in future. We don't know, because exactly what we see now. We don't know if during winter there will be another wave to Poland, then okay, we will again open the transit center and do these evacuations. In between, we have stopped them, and we started evacuating people from the freed territories to, for example, Kharkiv, or now we'll be doing to Kherson, from which already the government is reallocating people, yeah?
Evacuating to Poland.
No, to
Within
other
Ukraine.
parts of Ukraine. Yeah, you have the internal program that IDPs, people who want to move from them, they are, this is organized by the government. But exactly as Grzegorz said, we don't know the plan for the next 2 or 3 months in this case. But for sure, we are planning also, we have some lessons learned. So regarding cash assistance program, we are more to continue cash for work modality, just motivating people to be active than to be passive, and getting money for their own work, which is beneficial for the community.
So it's like a paid volunteering? Let's explain
No,
it a bit.
it's not paid volunteering. It's just the salary. So you are working. This is what we do, for example, in Poland also. That, like I said about teacher, but in Ukraine now we do with municipalities. They are like cleaning, doing some work. They have employment contract, service contract, and they receive money like a salary. But this is money not because of being IDP. By the way, the big challenge, I mean, also lesson learned is now that we have to help all the people. At the beginning, all the programs were focused on IDPs, but then it's still causing a lot of tensions in the communities, that some people, why he is receiving aid and I do not. And especially now with the blackout challenges, people are equal, yeah? And for sure, our organization is planning to do some reconstruction activities, although we are waiting, because we don't know. There is still shelling. We are asking ourselves questions, should we still wait? Because of the mining, some maybe strategic planning of this issue, and so on.
Thank you. Michael?
Yeah.
It was not short, sorry.
So we did not wait. We took that risk. I'll give you a perfect example. When the Bucha massacre was frontline news, we finally got in there and we delivered our first 18-wheeler truck of aid to the mayor of Bucha. And he was very grateful. And we said, we're going to continue to give you these trucks. And you know what he said to me? He said, this is very nice of you, but the people in Ukraine, we don't need this. What we really need is you to help us rebuild Bucha immediately. We need the supermarkets open. We need the clinics open. We need it to start moving. Please help us with this. Within a month, we had MOUs drawn up. He identified certain projects that were very important to rebuild, some apartment buildings. And we looked at that as just like I explained in the beginning, how to get the most amount of aid to the most amount of people, right? For the least amount of money. How to get the most amount of people back in their homes in the shortest amount of time for the least amount of money. Let's do some math. If a refugee leaves Ukraine and he goes to Poland, what do you think it will cost Expo per day, per refugee, to take care of that refugee, right? All those costs. We were able to repair, for example, a building that can house 185 people in it in 3 months worth of work by getting a brand new roof, a heating system, and all new windows in 3 months work. And it puts 185 people, and it costs $100,000. And you're spending a few $100s per person.
And it stays, which is more important.
You're spending a few $100s per people to get them back in a building. Is there a risk that that building can get rocketed again? There is. But the people make the decisions, not us. And they're the ones that said, we want to go back home, get us out of this shelter in Poland. Then they had another requirement. We can't leave the shelter in Poland unless the schools in Bucha are open, because our kids have to go back to school. So then we went to the schools, and the Bucha City Council showed us 6 schools that could be repaired fairly quickly. Again, new roof, new windows, things of that nature. So by September 1st, we had already repaired 6 schools with ribbon cuttings, and that put about 5,600 children back in school on September 1st, which also created the parents, right, to basically come back home. And they're not all broke, so they have their own money too. So when they go back to Bucha, now they're spending money at the grocery store. And now you have a micro economy that rebuilt. And if you go to Bucha today, after everything that's happened, it's pretty incredible. It's actually back up and running. Children are going to school. There's traffic, the stores are open, and everything is moving, right? So we created this program called Hope for Bucha. And we put banners everywhere. It's actually not expensive in Ukraine. And it was just to give hope, because we believe in empowerment. Therapy is great, but it's not as powerful as empowerment. And I can tell you firsthand that the people that we've repaired their homes, which by the way, we've repaired today in partnership with City Bucha, 180 homes already. And some cost us nothing because they're light repairs. It could be 2 windows and a roof repair. And it puts a whole family of 5 or even 10 and their cousins back in their home, right? And those people are so empowered now to the point where if you were to give them a survey, including their children, they would actually tell you that they are at the height and that their souls are on fire and that they are in mission and that they are not leaving their country, and they are so in drive, right? Just like Zelensky said on that day, the day Russia invaded is the day that Ukraine was reborn, right? And reborn. And so this is an empowerment thing. And when you empower people, the psychological trauma and everything, when you put them in mission, right, it completely shifts. Our whole team over there, including our Ukraine director, was initially someone that came to me that wanted to be relocated on the Poland side, that was crying like a little baby. Can you relocate me to Canada? And next thing you know, he was bringing aid to the border, and then he was the manager of the Jeshu warehouse, and now he's the director of GEM Ukraine, and he is in his power. And he put the whole entire team of Ukrainians that we have in their power, right? So the negative creates also very positive things. And it's important to understand that, because as long as we keep empowering people, that's the real secret to everything, I believe.
Thank you so much. It was very inspirational. Olga?
Yeah, I just want to add, in terms of this psychological support, that Caritas as a network will enter into the basically programs of psychosocial support in 2023. And unfortunately, I have a feeling that there's so much to do, that there's enough space for everybody. WHO published last week, I think, data, and they said that already 70% of the Ukrainian society had a post-war trauma. And that's really the low statistics. So we will for sure do the needs assessment in this area and engage the whole network. But also what I have a feeling that there's gonna be a huge challenge in also one aspect, like while the family gonna be reunited once again. Because we have to realize that, for example, women migrated, children migrated. They're, let's say in Poland, in fine conditions, in safe conditions, while the men are in the Ukraine, very often bombed every day, every week, without electricity. And we can only imagine how the level of frustration, I don't know, trauma, everything, you know, what you have inside. And it's not gonna be easy to connect families once again. And we have to realize that, because it's gonna be, in my opinion, a huge social problem in Ukraine. And we will have to realize that and prepare somehow to help these families to be together once again. Because it's different when you call somebody or, you know, have a Teams or Skype. And then if you have to get back to a normality, we all hope, one day, because it's not going to be easy.
Sure, thank you. That's an important point to mention. I think that the pain that families are sharing is multiplied to the whole nation. There's no family that wasn't touched. So definitely it's an important issue. Thank you. Michael, would you? Oh, sorry, Phil. I was so inspired by Michael that I'm mistaken. Can you add up on what are the projects that you are planning to do? How do you see the future projects? You see? You did it with me. You got me. Sorry, Phil.
Yeah. Mental health is something that we've built our team now, and that's becoming a bigger part of what we're doing because, you know, you have to save the lives first, and then you can start to address those things. But we recognize that there are 45 million Ukrainians that have been traumatized at one level or another because everybody has experienced the trauma of the war. So that's a growing part of our program. The rebuilding of health infrastructure is just now starting, and like Michael was saying, you know, the ministry wants to move forward, even though there's a risk that these repairs could be, facilities could be redamaged, but we're not going to wait. We're starting those repairs, and maybe...
You're also starting now.
Yeah, yep. We are already moving forward with repairs out in Irpin, in Bucha, and Hostomel, as well as other, we're now in Izum, Lyman, places that are newly liberated and already starting to work to repair health infrastructure there as well. So, no, we're not waiting.
Thank you, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for the discussion. There's a bit of time for the questions from the audience. Does anyone wants to ask the question? Are we ready with the microphone for the audience? Yes, we are. Anybody wants to ask the question? Would you please? Thank you. You're ready to answer, right? Okay.
I am from Italy, in your disposal, to work together. We plan to hire, we are also an association of Smiths, and the Smiths want to hire a refugee in order to make a training on the job. But you know very well people in Ukraine that lose their job or lose their firm. And we want to create a joint between an Italian firm and a possible similar firm in Ukraine. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you. Capponi is my last name, so Italian. I'm a former developer, actually, and I fully retired, and I'm 100% with this work. So we have a good construction background. When it comes to training for Ukrainians to rebuild, as a builder, that's not that needed. I have never seen in all the construction projects that I've ever done a more resilient and quick and incredible builders. The builders are like the soldiers. They can rebuild a school in like 3 months. And the Ukrainian labor is there. And all they want is to like have projects. And we would love to partner with you. What we do is we have so many projects. There's 1,100 projects that need to be repaired in just Bucha alone. And that's just one little area, right? Imagine. And what we do is we partner with different, whether it's a country or whether it's a Howard G. Buffett or a Virgin, and we do these projects together, whereas we oversee the management. We, unlike many groups, have zero profit, zero. We are pure humanitarians, and we are here to take out all the profits from people that try to make off of humanitarian aid or of construction, right? How to build the most amount of things for the least amount of money, right? And that's what we do. And what we found is that there's two groups in Ukraine. There's a contractor group that wants to make money and get a contract awarded to him to build. And then you can just get a good general contractor that doesn't, that's Ukrainian, and he will find hybrid labor. What hybrid labor is basically volunteers almost that are Ukrainian. Because if you import volunteers, that actually costs more to bring them in and to house them and to feed them than it does to give a job to someone in Ukraine. And hybrid volunteers we also don't believe too much in importing construction materials. We found that you can actually buy a window that's manufactured in Ukraine for about $100 a window. Imagine that. So with $200, you could put 2 windows and you can repair an apartment that's been basically hit. And that puts a whole bunch of people back. So the ideas here is we should meet and work together and, again, try to figure out how to build the most amount of things, put the most amount of people in their homes. So we aren't rebuilding in, for example, the East, because I would call that extremely high risk, right? It was liberated a few weeks ago. I'm not sure it's in that stage yet. But in areas like Bucha that have been liberated for quite a while now, that are fully functioning, we think the risk is much lower and there's a big need there. And every time you put 2 windows on some new apartment, you're basically putting 10 people back into an apartment, and you're saving 10 people from basically going into Europe and becoming a refugee.
Thank you so much. So finishing this, you want to ask a question? Please do. Can we have a microphone? I need thank you.
Sorry, it will be not question, but I'm presented Wall Central Kitchen. I'm country leader from Ukraine. And we talked about a lot of heating centers and the problem with the winter. And I want to invite you to join our big project together with railway station. We are working on the opening the heating center based on the railways. Now we open 45 and equip it. So let's join, and we will be very helpful because this partner is really reliable. And also together with Nova Ukraine, Говард Buffett Foundation, we give generators, heating systems, and etc., etc. So we are open to new partners. Let's help Ukrainians together.
Thank you so much. I would finish this panel with thanking all of you, Phil, Anna, Grzegorz, Olga, Michael. It was inspiring, it was very open. I think we had a great discussion. But finishing it, I want to say that there was something important in what you just said. This conference and this space is created to network and build partnerships. Please don't be shy. Walk towards each other. Pitch yourself. Ask. There's a lot of very, very, very experienced humanitarians. They will help you out. If you are just starting or you are just becoming a volunteer, please don't be shy, network, come up, join, and because together we are always more than we are alone. Thank you so much.